What is up, people, and welcome to another episode of Attribution Radio. I'm your RJ and host, Karthik, and we got an awesome episode here today. We're going to go do a deep dive of media mix modeling and how different segments of the industry, like marketing departments, have come to accept MMM in their media analytics initiatives. Check this out.
I want to transition to the question here, Satya. You're an MMM guy. You come from a lot of the Nielsen folks are MMM folks. Enterprise MMM is kind of the heritage they have. Now you've seen how we did this project. It's a very different execution. MMMs are now much faster. Well, I don't want to put words in your mouth. How is it different? I mean, you've seen two very different executions, I'm sure.
First of all, I think it was a very pleasant experience, right? Like this, and hopefully we get to do a lot more. I think this was just a beginning, and there's a lot more scope at Rappi. Stepping back, I think, like I said, I was in charge of the tooling, and that was a big reason why, at that time, like my position in market share was important because I was the head of engineering. I was not a modeler. I was building all the tooling, which is going to collect all the data, help build the models, and then when the models are built, to kind of build that application, which is going to go and have all those insights and so on. So that was my job, right? I was a big value proposition for market share. That's why market share existed, and that's why Visual IQ existed, because the question is, how do you kind of build that infrastructure to build the models and so on and so forth. What has happened is the fact that after that, two things happened. First that happened was the fact that actually it was not, I'm very surprised at MMM being sexy right now, to be very honest, because in 2014, we were actively deprioritizing MMM. We were telling people that don't do MMM, do MTA.
That's right.
And it is basically much more MMM, you saw challenges. It's basically 2% of spend. It's not that agile. MTA is agile. It's event-based. You can literally track one particular campaign a lot more. So we were pushing MTA a lot in 2014. And then the privacy stuff came along, right? Then what happened is, because of privacy, because of cookie deprecation, and cookie deprecation was on for a longer period of time. So we basically said, okay, so all of that made data at a very granular level extremely hard to get, and it's getting harder and harder and harder, right? So that's one point. And then the other point was the fact that what happened is all of these big companies started basically open source. Came into this, I'm very surprised it came into this right at this this late. Should have been long time earlier, because MMM has existed forever. But open source frameworks from M Squared is using Robin, which is a very, very popular thing, and there's something like Google. These open source frameworks, what they did was they took a lot of this tooling that that was my specialty in market share, and made that available to everybody.
That's
right. So you don't need a very sophisticated engineering team to kind of have all of those toolings. Now you need the marketing scientist knowledge, like a modeler, an experienced modeler who can understand how to kind of build the model, but the tooling is kind of available. I think for both of these things, because MMM became extremely popular and because the tooling is available, that is widely available. So it's and then the pace at which you can build these models have also become have also increased a lot. These tools, what they've done is they've helped us come up with this model much faster, right? There's one more thing. I know, Madan, you talked about challenges in data, which is probably true, but I had the thing of working only for digital companies, right? So in digital companies, what has happened is, if you notice one thing about digital companies, most of these companies are on the cloud, like 90-95% right now are on the cloud. So what happens is the data collection is not a problem anymore. What happens is everything is available in the data. One more trend that you should all really be looking at is called the lakehouse and the composability aspect of it. So what happens, for example, let's say Rappi, right? It's there. It's not. It's in 6 months. It's going to become even more real. We are not going to ship one byte of data outside of our lakehouse. Everything is going to sit here. All of our data is going to sit here. And then what's going to happen is the tools are going to be sitting on top of our lakehouse. directly and operating on top of it.
Beautiful.
But we used to spend about 6 to 8 weeks collecting the data, right? Back in the days. Just getting the data ready, getting it to a point where it is like reasonable used to take us 6 to 8 weeks. And then, of course, then you kind of like build those models and so on and so forth. So it'd be like a 3 to 6 month project for us to kind of build these things before I can get the first model in. And then I can. But now I think, in my opinion, in a even a few months, right? Like definitely within a year or something like that, it's already getting there. All of the data is already available. Might not be clean. You might have to still kind of like work on some transformations and so on and so forth. Again, the programs which are doing those transformations are also going to be easily operable. You don't have to hire like complex data engineering folks to do it, right? It's already like the systems are really sophisticated, then they're getting AI on top of it and so on and so forth to kind of do the data cleaning and so on and so forth. So what's going to happen is the base data is going to be available much faster, right? So the base data is going to be available much faster. You have this open source tooling which you can deploy and so on and so forth. So then the only thing is the marketing scientist who's going to use all of these toolings. That is always like in a 50% heart and 50% science, right? You can never replace that. You can it's got all this. So you can only focus on that. And because of that, the time to bring an MMM model, a good MMM model, right? It's collapsed significantly now, as opposed to MMM.
Sorry, finish with that, Satya.
No, I'm just saying, and MMM is like now the thing to do. Like it is like I'm just surprised, but it is the thing to do right now.
Hey, so Mari, you've done a lot of these models now. I mean, you used to do this for Nielsen Visual IQ timeframe. So you've kind of seen the big shift, generational shift in marketing mix. How do you as a modeler? I'll just react to that. How does that land on you as somebody who's actually hands-on building models? What's changed?
Yeah, I mean, I think in terms of data prep, as Satya mentioned, it used to be like almost a month to get the data in the right format. So I think that has changed a lot. Also, I think the model, most of the model selection is automated now.
Right.
At least we are getting the results in a more readable format, right? Like we're getting all these summaries kind of, I mean, in a more understandable format. Yeah. So I think the time that we spend in reviewing the model has come down a lot. And also the automation with all these all these pipelines are getting automated. So the time to get the results has come down a lot, actually.
Significantly, right? So, Payman, now you think we're entering the golden era of MMMs now? So now all the data science is conquered. It's all about marketing scientists and being able to bridge the data science to the marketing application. Are we, like what is the curtains opening to a golden era of marketing mix models?
Yeah, I believe so. Actually, going back to what Satya was saying on the 2014 debate in market share about deprioritizing MMM, we were, there were some of us that actually knew back then that this era will come, and we have very, very, very similar conversation in our former company. I'm sure and I think it was not obvious to a lot of people that sooner or later this cookie-based attribution approach is going to be collapsing, right? And so you need to start investing in other solutions that don't require that. On the other hand, people were, there was an era back then that everything was just like the big data era, right? I mean, we have to track everything. We need to look at all the customer journey, and that's by putting all of this together, suddenly we'll have the insight we need. It's just the insight about aggregating all these large volumes of data. Just go get the data and aggregate it, and that's where the insight is. And as opposed to model, which tries to really infer based on things that it doesn't have. But anyway, I think that era is here now because of all the things that Satya said, the privacy, and it's just all these different ecosystem of data make it impossible to just track at the single user level what is going on. So MMM is back, but it's going to be a different kind of MMM than what our, it's not our grandfather's MMM. It's going to be a different kind of MMM. It's an MMM where it's now blended with AI. Now, how that works, I really, I think in the next few years we'll see how this shapes up. But when we are really standing at this AI revolution. I was just reading somewhere that ChatGPT number of parameters is 1.7 trillion. That's mind blowing. 1.7 trillion parameters. In comparison, human brain, the most sophisticated machine ever created or came about, however, whatever your beliefs are, it's, if you look at the synapses, which kind of are equivalent to the parameters in the artificial neural network, 100 trillion. So yeah, it's 2% of that, but it's only 2%. I mean, we get there like within a decade. And so within a decade, we will most likely surpass human intelligence. So just what the world will look like. And of course, this modeling, all of that. So what it means, in terms of the MMM implication, we've been talking about it, all this art, all this triangulation, don't take these numbers religiously, try to get evidence behind all of these numbers from other sources. That exercise becomes much, much more available to everyone and easier to do and much less manual. Now, exactly what the solution will look like is everyone's guess. But I think there's just like a golden era. I wouldn't just say of MMM, but MMM as part of a different kind of framework that we've been used to in the era of big data. It's exciting. I think it's a very exciting time for all the fields, including this.
Yeah. So great point. So Roman, I know you are a media mix modeler yourself, or any other MMM modelers in the class. I want to open the floor for you guys. Any questions you have? Any thoughts you have? POVs? Okay, going once.
Yeah, I have a few questions, basically. So now, Mari, maybe I can ask directly to Mari or Payman. So usually we took a lot of time for data prep and all, right? So maybe Madan mentioned here, but what's your experience on this one, Mari, if you can?
How long does it take you to do data prep on, say, RAPI, for example? How long does it take for you? I mean, you did. I mean, Vishnu was, and all of you guys know Vishnu. Vishnu worked on the project with us. But what's the data science side of things, Mari? How much more time does it take after he lands data for you to translate that into something you can use for modeling?
I mean, so in case of MMM, we are dealing with the aggregated data, so the processing time is not going to be much. So, but much challenging part is deciding what dimensions to use in the model. I think that's what we went through. So there is probably there are techniques, and in case of in Visual IQ, we used to do hierarchical modeling. So that kind of tells us what level of aggregation we should use in the model. I think that part is probably still missing in the problem, because it kind of, you need to give the data and then it can give you the results. So the right level of aggregation to the model, so that is a little more, we have to blend in the business sense as well as look at the fit statistics. Madan was showing you results where when we use the audience segment as an aggregation level, it gave poor results. So some level of aggregation actually can kill the variations in the data. So I think, so we'll have to make some, the scientific as well as some subjective judgment to create the data in the right format.
So we have to be iterative.
I just want to add something to what Mari says, important point. So one of the things is really the level of aggregation. It can either help you or hurt you badly. That's why the hierarchical modeling that Mari was talking about was our way of ensuring that without making the data granular, we don't throw out anything. So keep everything, while at the same time we shape up the model in such a way that the data doesn't become fragmented. And that was actually a pretty unique approach. I mean, these models like Robin and this and that don't address it. I mean, they are tools that are great tools. Once you have a regression model to solve, you don't need to start a regression model from scratch. You can take these models such as Robin or the Google version of it and solve it. But in a way, how you actually formulate the problem and then use these tools to solve the problem that you have set up, it's still something for a challenge for data scientists to undertake. So Robin is not going to solve that problem for you. It's a good.
So let me a great point. Let me flip the conversation. Okay, now that you've gone through all of this, Satya, what was the most surprising thing when you in the results that you saw? Is it the process? Is it the results? What surprised you the most in the process of?
See, I think if you really, it was great. The process itself was great. We learned a lot. That was always a good thing, right? Like, so whenever you go through this process and you learn something which you didn't know before, which is that was amazing. We had challenges in how we did our internal attribution that was revealed by that particular study. We had we were obviously, some of these channels were overstated, some of these channels were understated, and that was
amazing conversation. Let's not lose that momentum. I have another clip from Ali Lichtenberg here as a perfect segue, showing how industry acceptance of MMM has affected the big tech dons of Facebook, Google, and Amazon. Check this out.
This is Lichtenberg weighing in on the Ad Exchanger article from last week. Why Facebook, Google, and Amazon are embracing media mix modeling. So first of all, I think this article is very much a sign of the times, and just one more step in that direction toward these big media platforms finally coming to terms with the fact that their last touch platform reporting has less and less sway in how marketers make their decisions. And I think all of these walled gardens have recognized the need to show value in ways besides last touch. Now we can debate the benefit and the reasons behind each of these platforms releasing their own MMM models to do this measurement. Of course, there's always the concern about these platforms grading their own homework. I want to address Robin specifically, which is Meta's open source MMM tool. I do think a distinction should be made for a tool that is open source and readily available for data science and independent analysts to review themselves versus a more opaque measurement where third parties can't kind of verify methodology. So I do think there is a bit of a differentiation there, and therefore I'm not as concerned with Robin kind of favoring Facebook as this article can suggest at some points. I do think that what this article highlights is what, as marketers and agency professionals, we've known for a while now, is that performance reporting is getting more and more complicated. There's more models out there than ever before. Even your media mix model is not just a single model. It can be 6 models from 6 different sources. Then you have to combine that with your incrementality reporting, your brand lift reporting, and your platform reporting, and your Google Analytics reporting. And you need to triangulate all of those sources together to come up with your final read on how all of your tactics are doing independently and holistically. So with this ever-changing landscape, with reporting and modeling becoming ever more complicated, I think that all points to the need for marketing analytics professionals who you trust, that you can work closely with to provide independent opinions on each of these sources, and how they should be contributing to your view of your media performance.
Big shout out to everyone breaking down MMM, and Ali for bringing up a really interesting point about the direction the industry is heading in. And that's what I want to highlight in my little wrap up. Why companies are seeing so much value in MMM, and how and why the biggest players in the industry are running with it. For starters, I found it really interesting that the industry itself is so volatile in its data analyzing methodologies. Even back in 2014, so not that long ago, back when singer Pharrell was going viral for his 10-gallon hat, MMM was being deprioritized in favor of MTA, as Satya mentioned. So what really changed? MMM is essentially a top-down approach on data. It favors a broader view on marketing, including online and offline channels like TV, radio, and print. And I promise you print isn't really dead yet. But yeah, it's a more holistic view on marketing. While MTA, oversimplified, leverages digital touchpoint tracking to understand a customer's journey before a sale. So what are they clicking before they hit that buy button? Essentially, the three major walled garden advertising platforms, so Meta, Google, and Amazon, are investing in new measurement solutions known as media mix modeling, or MMM. This marks a departure from their traditional practices, as MMM typically involves statistical methods to evaluate the effectiveness of competing advertising channels, something that the platforms usually wouldn't embrace. The motivation behind this shift is the recent impact of privacy restrictions on measurement, prompting these platforms to seek any viable method to demonstrate attribution, even if it involves giving credit to competitors for conversions. Meta was the first to introduce an open source tool called Robin, designed to automate much of the modeling in MMM without relying on cookies, pixel data, or personally identifiable information. This development coincided with Apple's App Tracking Transparency Framework, or ATT, which made cross-app tracking challenging for major advertising platforms. Amazon has also launched an automated MMM application to facilitate brands in exporting their Amazon ads data for MMM analysis. They believed MMMs are useful for assessing ad effectiveness, with their first-party retail data proving particularly valuable. Google is also exploring the possibility of building an MMM tool to help brands measure advertising campaign performance across various channels. While this approach may seem odd in the era of data-driven advertising, it's experiencing a revival due to privacy concerns limiting more precise methods. Modern MMM models benefit from the extensive data collected by these platforms, making them attractive to smaller brands and agencies lacking the resources to build their own. But there's tons of concerns about objectivity and trustworthiness. Like, these platforms provided MMMs could be seen as having a conflict of interest because of what Ali said about these platforms kind of grading their own homework by providing their own MMM tools. Just to wrap it up, the adoption of MMM by major advertising platforms reflects their need to adapt to changing privacy regulations and to continue demonstrating attribution, even if it means acknowledging the role of competitors in driving conversions. All this said though, it's all about trust and objectivity, which are still issues that persist with MMM, something brands seem to be willing to bet their dollars on. But that's all for today. RJ Karthik, signing out. Till next time.